YouTubers, and welcome back to Tony the Technician's channel. And today on Tech Tips Tuesday, we're going to be going over coolant leaks, such as where to find them, signs of a coolant leak such as overheating, coolant on the ground, exhaust smoke, things like that. I'll also go into some of the specialty tools that you can use to diagnose these situations. I don't personally have them, but they can be rented from O'Reilly's, AutoZone, any auto parts store like that, and you will get your money back after you're done using them. We'll go into where the most common places are for leaks and things such as that. So I really hope this is helpful for some of you, and I really hope you guys enjoy. But before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to Minions Garage for guessing yesterday's episode, a 2008 to 2012 Chevy Malibu headlight exchange or replacement. So if you haven't checked out the Minions Garage channel, make sure to go check it out, like and subscribe. And stay tuned, or go check out my Facebook page, Tony the Technician, if you want sneak peeks into the next day's episode, as well as pictures of cars that I find around town that are a little bit ridiculous. You can also post pictures there of vehicles that you find, or your project car, or your toolbox and tools. I love looking at that stuff. So please go like and follow my Facebook page and share your toolbox or your project car. But let's get into this, and I really hope you guys enjoy. If you do, make sure to hit that thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and as always, subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Thank you guys. Alrighty guys, so before I get into actually showing you places that you can look for the leaks and some signs, I just want to quickly go over a couple of the tools that you could use to find both types of leaks, whether it's internal or external. Really good test to do if you have an external leak, or you suspect an external leak, say you have fluid on the ground or anything like that, would be to use a radiator coolant pressure tester. And basically it's a pump that comes with a couple of adapters that you can install on the top of your radiator or your surge tank by removing the cap and putting this fitting on there, and then you hook up the pump. You pump it up to the pressure that your radiator cap or surge cap is the release pressure, and you pump it up to that, and you listen for hisses, or you might even find the leak. You might see it spraying out because you're putting the cooling system under pressure. And then for internal leaks, they have this thing called a block tester, and it basically looks like a turkey baster, sometimes in two pieces, and you fill it with this fluid, and you would remove your cap from your radiator or tank, and you put the baster down inside, not into the coolant, but right above it, and you're basically sucking in the air that's inside of your cooling system. And if this fluid in the baster changes colors, that means you have an internal leak, most likely a blown head gasket or a crack, where coolant is getting in, or combustion gases are getting into the coolant, and then the coolant might be getting into your cylinder, and you might have white smoke. Because we all know there's different colors of smoke for different issues, such as black for a fuel issue, running too rich or lean, blue if you're burning oil, and white if it's coolant. But keep in mind, all vehicles in certain temperatures, if you have condensation in your exhaust, if it's cool out, you will have white smoke. But if the vehicle warms up, and after warm up is complete and you're still blowing a lot of white smoke, it's most likely an internal coolant leak. So that's just something to keep in mind. I will post pictures of those tools I just spoke about, so you guys have an idea of it, or you can look up radiator pressure tester or block tester, and you should be able to find it online as well. You can rent these from your parts store, or you can get them online, usually for under $40. So it's all up to you, but let's get into some more information. So to start out, I just want to go over a couple things, and I'll get more into it later on. But it's pretty easy to determine whether you have a coolant leak or if it's something else, because coolant is usually a brighter color than any of your other fluids, such as your oil, brake fluid, power steering fluid, things like that, because those can be a little bit more difficult to decipher which one it is, because after a while all the fluids will start to look the same. But with coolant, it's usually a bright color: green, blue, yellow, purple, pink, all of that. So it's pretty easy to tell and you will usually get that sweet smell with it as well. So if you don't get a check engine light and your vehicle's overheating, if you don't get that, most of the time you'll see coolant on the ground. But moving on, let's start with the interior. If you don't notice a leak on the ground or anything like that, but you notice a weird film on your windshield and you can't wipe it off, it's most likely due to a blown heater core, where the coolant flows through hoses that run in through your firewall into the heater core and back out. This is where you get your heat from, and usually it's due to a crack in the heater core or one of the hoses. And another big sign of that is if you have coolant on your passenger side floor most of the time. Sometimes the heater core is in the center of the vehicle, and a majority of the time on the passenger side. So if you have a puddle of coolant on the passenger side, it's your heater core. But moving on, I'll show you those hoses in just a little bit. Actually, I can try and show you now. It's really difficult to see. You have some AC lines down here, but you will have two hoses that go into the firewall that are about an inch in diameter or so, and those will be your heater core hoses. Moving on from the heater core hoses, we're going to get into all the other hoses, which is basically your inlet and your outlet hose from your radiator. Usually they're offset, one will be on the top on one side and one will be on the lower side. And you want to check these for bloating, dry rotting, cracking, and sometimes it's very difficult to see, so you really need to look close. Also, you will have clamps that hold these hoses to the radiator and your water pump and thermostat. So you need to check those because those clamps can dig into the hose over time and cause a crack. So just give them a good squeeze. Before testing or removing any caps, you want to squeeze the hose to see if there's pressure in it. If there is, wait for the vehicle to cool before removing any surge tank cap or radiator cap. On this model, there is no radiator cap. It all runs to the surge tank up on the firewall. Let me show that to you. So this is where you would check, where on other models you may have the cap up at the front of the car over here. But as you can see, there is no radiator cap. The next thing I want to get into is checking the radiator. Radiators can get cracks in the tanks or they can be damaged on the fins. So you want to look very closely. Another common spot on the radiator for a leak is at the bottom. Your radiator may have a petcock, which is basically a drain plug for your radiator. So if it's been removed and reinstalled, it could have cracked because some are plastic, some are metal. It could have been cross-threaded or it's just not tight, causing a leak. So that is a very common spot to check. But just thoroughly inspect your radiator. I'm sorry I can't access my radiator. It is not easy on this vehicle. But moving on from the radiator, we're going to talk about the water pump. So moving on to the water pump, I brought you over here to my small block Chevy. It's a little bit easier to see on this. This is one design. On newer vehicles, they are a little bit different. But all in all, they do the same thing. So basically, your water pump is driven off of your crank or your pulley system, and it rotates your coolant. But a common thing is, in the front of the water pump, there are a couple seals, and over time, these seals do go bad. It's just a part of the wear and tear on the water pump. And they have engineered this hole you can see here. You can see that small hole right there. And that is designed to release the coolant when these seals in the water pump go bad, because you don't want coolant past these seals. So when they do go bad, they engineered this weep hole in order for you to easily diagnose that your water pump is bad and needs to be replaced. So that is a very simple way to tell. But you have one of your heater core hoses that run here, but we've already kind of went over the heater core, and most of the time this won't go bad. It'll be the heater core inside of the vehicle. Another thing to keep in mind is the thermostat. If your vehicle is overheating, you could have a stuck thermostat, which is a spring-loaded valve that sits inside of this housing that allows coolant to flow. Once your vehicle gets up to temperature or starts to get too warm, it'll open up and allow more coolant to flow through to your engine and back to your radiator, and then close when it starts to get cool and things like that. So another thing to check if your vehicle is just overheating is to check your thermostat. Okay, so that's some of the spots that you can look for a coolant leak. Sorry, I couldn't really show you too in depth on the Malibu, but you could kind of see it with the water pump and thermostat housing on the small block Chevy. But anytime you're going to check the cooling system or remove any caps, just make sure the engine is cool. Keep in mind that there are internal and external coolant leaks. Basically, when you have an internal leak, you get a crack in the head gasket or the head, and that basically allows coolant to flow from its galleys, where it's supposed to flow, into areas of the engine where it's not supposed to be. And that can really cause a lot of problems and could turn out to be a really bad day. So it's best to catch it as soon as possible. So if you notice your coolant is disappearing, but you don't see any leaks, that's something you might want to check out. So hoses, you want to check for bloated, cracking, dry rotting, things like that, ballooning, because eventually those hoses will go bad because they are just rubber. Keep in mind, there's more than just an upper and lower radiator hose. You have your heater core hoses, you have the hoses for your overflow tank, and things like that. So it's pretty easy to trace those hoses and usually pretty easy to inspect them as well. Just keep in mind that it could be a very small leak, and that pressure tester on the coolant system could really help you out in finding that leak. The radiator, I went over the petcock, which is a common place for it to leak, or if you have a cracked housing on the side, the actual tank of it, or if you have damaged fins, you could have leaks from there as well, because you do have passageways through your fins where the coolant flows in order to dissipate that heat to the atmosphere. What else? Something that I forgot to kind of go over were the caps on the radiator. If those are loose, you could also have a leak, or if the pressure relief valve in the cap has gone bad, you could have a problem as well. The thermostat, we went over the thermostat and the water pump. That weep hole is there on purpose, so if you see coolant coming out of there, don't try and plug it. That means your water pump seals have gone bad and coolant is flowing where it's not supposed to. So go ahead and replace your water pump. And always keep in mind that just like any other fluid in the engine, the coolant is going to run back and down. So obviously air is flowing over your engine. So if you notice a leak way back by your firewall, that doesn't mean the leak is coming from a hose on your firewall or anything like that. It could just be the air pushing the coolant that direction. The heater core we went over, where you will get that film on the windshield, or you will have a puddle of coolant under your dash. We'll just put that in general under your dash or on your floorboards. So that's another sign of a blown heater core or the hose for the heater core. The thermostat could cause overheating issues or cause your vehicle not to get up to temperature. If it's open all the time and coolant is constantly flowing, your engine can't get up to temperature. If it's stuck closed and it can't circulate that coolant back to the radiator, then you're going to start overheating. Either way, you should get a check engine light once your heat reaches that temperature. And we also went over white smoke of the exhaust, not during first startup, but after you've got the vehicle up to operating temperature and you see lots of white smoke, that could indicate an internal coolant leak as well. So I think I covered everything that I wanted to, and I really hope this helps you diagnose your overheating or coolant leaking situation. But in case I forgot to say something and you guys noticed something that I didn't cover, please leave it down in the comments to help other people out in diagnosing their situation. But other than that, keep in mind a coolant pressure tester and a block tester will seriously help you out in finding these internal or external leaks. But other than that, I really hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to check out my Facebook page for sneak peeks into the next day's episodes. where you can also post pictures of your toolbox, tools, project cars, or anything like that, or if you just want to chat. So make sure to check that out, like and follow, and I'll see you guys next time. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and as always, subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Thank you guys.